Mr. President, today is tax day, 2 days later than April 15th actually, but nonetheless, today is tax day. I rise to speak about the impact of what we have just done over the last 15 months to affect the future of our free enterprise system here in America. When President Donald Trump took office last year, he set out with 3 clear priorities. Under the major objective last year, job 1 was to grow the economy. To do that, he charged us in Congress to focus on 3 things: regulations, energy, and taxes. In addition to those 3, we were supposed to try to get to Dodd-Frank and take away some of the pressure on small banks and regional banks, which we've just done this year in the Senate. Just a few weeks ago, we've actually passed that bill. The reason that's important, Mr. President, those 4 things will free up some estimated $6 trillion in potential capital investment that has not been at work in our $20 trillion economy. What we've just done with regulation, energy, and taxes will free up, or have the opportunity to free up, this $6 trillion. That's huge in this economy. In the regulatory environment, last year, well over 860 regulations were reversed. It's the largest in history. Concrete steps have been taken to unleash our country's full energy potential, including Anwar, Keystone Pipeline, adjustments to the Clean Power Plan, and Waters of the U.S., just to mention a few. Finally, historic changes to the tax code were signed into law by President Trump. It used to be that today was a bad day in America. We all dreaded it. It was a day we had to turn our taxes. This year, it's actually a day of good news in that this is the last time the American people will have to file their taxes using the old, outdated tax system that had become so archaic and so non-competitive with the rest of the world. These changes to the tax code are bringing relief to American workers and businesses. The average household in America, the median income household, family of 4, will see their taxes reduced by about $2,000 a year, or more than half. These changes are making American made goods much more competitive on the world stage by making our corporate tax rate more competitive. The greatest hindrance, the greatest tax on the American worker in the years past was this archaically high corporate tax rate. People say, well, we just pushed all those profits to the corporate entities. No, this was the greatest thing we could do for the American worker, was to help them become more competitive with the rest of the world. Give them a level playing field. And that's what we did in this tax bill. And we're already seeing early positive results. Over 2 million jobs have been created since this bill since President Trump took office. Consumer confidence is at a 17-year high. Now, as an ex-retailer and a person in consumer products and in manufacturing most of my career, I've watched this index. This is phenomenal to be at a 17-year high this early in this turnaround. It bodes well for the future of what we've just done. CEO confidence is at a 20-year high. $2 trillion in overseas profits potentially have been unlocked and are available now for capital investment back in this country. And yes, we already see public corporations making public statements in their quarterly earnings reviews about this capital investment plan that they're laying out. We see investment increases being announced every month from public companies in America today. There's no question that businesses are beginning to bring those profits home and investing in our economy. Nationally, over 4 million Americans have received bonuses in addition and wage increases. Over 500 businesses have taken positive action, be it by giving out bonuses, raising wages, increasing 401k matches, or increasing their overall investment in their company. As a matter of fact, another benefit is that most of these public corporations have major foundations that do philanthropic work, tremendously constructive philanthropic work. And most of these companies who have made these announcements about their own financial well-being and those of their employees have also dramatically increased their contributions to those philanthropy efforts and those trust funds. In my home state of Georgia, dozens of companies are taking action because of these changes to the tax code, and they're making these statements publicly. You just go to any public corporation today that's in their latest quarterly return and look at what they're saying about how this tax change affects their business and the future of their employees. This is huge. it's also huge for the entire country because we're much more competitive today than we have been. For years, this tax code was working against American workers and our entire economy. It was crippling small businesses' ability to expand their companies and hire more workers. It was damaging our ability to compete with the rest of the world. Changing the tax code last year was the single greatest thing we could do to unleash economic growth this year. And we're just getting started. I've been through some of these large turnarounds, and I would characterize this as a mega turnaround. After 8 years of the lowest economic growth in U.S. history, we are now on the rebound. That's so important for the future of our country in the long term. We have a $21 trillion debt today, Mr. President, as you know. And one of the things we have to do to dig our way out of that is to get our economy healthy again. 1% growth in GDP is documented by the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, to yield $300 billion of federal revenue every year. That's $3 trillion over the next decade. So with the projection that we're going to add $10 trillion to the debt over the next decade, just from decisions that have been made over the last decade, we can see that just growing the economy alone is not enough to solve this debt crisis. But there are some in this body who have argued that this is nothing but a boondoggle. This was nothing but a huge deficit increasing exercise. Well, yes, there were identified costs included with this, but what wasn't considered by CBO was the long-term return on investment or the leverage effect of that return on investment or the leverage effect of this returning profit situation that we have coming back from the changes in the repatriation law. In addition to that, CBO forgot or never disagreed with using the impact of foreign direct investment, which I just really don't understand. I'm proud we got this tax bill done, Mr. President, and I know that the positive impact is really just beginning. There are other things we must do to deal with our national debt in the long term, like fixing our budget process, cutting back on redundant agencies, saving Social Security and Medicare, and finally getting after the spiraling nature of the underlying drivers of our health care costs, not just the insurance of it. It wouldn't be happening without these changes to the tax code, however, and without a president with a new perspective in the White House. President Trump worked in the real world for decades, and he brings that sense of urgency to the White House. Today, he's working at a business pace, not a bureaucratic pace, and he's committed to keeping up the positive momentum. This year, the pressure is on the other side, because right now we're trying to deal with immigration. The labor issue might be a constraining factor in the ultimate growth of this economy, and we need to deal with that. Infrastructure, both sides believe, for different reasons, why we need to be investing in infrastructure. But I remind my colleagues in this body, it was just in 2011 when this government threw $1 trillion at our economy, and I would debate the benefit of that particular investment because it wasn't against those stimulative issues that would grow the economy. Today, America deals with a new world. The world situation has never been more dangerous. The best thing we can do for our military and for our people is to get this economy moving again, create a level playing field around the world to help our trade situation. And that's what the President's trying to do right now, is to create a more level playing field, to grow our economy, fix our budget process, and deal with the spending issues that we have here at home. I'm excited to be a part of this select budget committee that is charged with changing the way we fund the federal government every year. I'm hopeful that that will lead to a new budget process that will allow us to avoid the continuing resolutions and the omnibuses where 5 or 6 people get in a room and decide how to spend $1 trillion. The tax changes alone will not dig us out of this debt crisis, Mr. President, but we knew that this was the first step to getting it going, and I'm delighted with the impact that it's having on our economy today. And with that, I yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.